Hi there, I'm David Kamens with this Mic Drop podcast. How are you? I gather that you want to be in this business, this crazy news, sports, weather, communication, television business, right? Or you're in it, or you're deep in it. You're at a certain market, you're in a place in your career where you're curious enough to come along with Kann Broadcast Coaching and say, what can I learn from you guys? Why are we doing this? Well, today, our guest is an extremely high achiever. She is special. She is so well spoken, as you'll soon learn. She is a friend of the broadcast in the fact that our colleague at Kann Broadcast Coaching enabled her early career, and she is now at the peak of the game, my friends. So come on along, enjoy this really special broadcast of Mic Drop. I am so especially pleased to be joined today by Sarah Burke. Sarah, you are news director in the great city of New York, New York. I am so pleased to have you on board today. And tell me, what did you want to do, Sarah, when you were a little girl, maybe, or a young teen? What were you thinking you were going to do with yourself as you grew up?
I I always admired the somewhat rough-edged editor of the Daily Planet. Um, Lois Lane was never my goal. It was always to be the guy behind the desk who was giving Lois her assignment and giving her advice on how to get to the bottom of Superman and who is he really. Uh, and so I guess I'm in the right spot.
That does explain a lot. Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of King Kong swinging around as well in that fair city. Not to mix stories, but so Superwoman, you have achieved what a lot of people seek to do in the news business, and that is climb to the top ranks. Where are you today? And tell us a little bit about how you got there.
I am the vice president and news director of CBS News New York. I manage a newsroom of approximately 200 people and work collaboratively with my department heads at the station to uh, cover the news and bring the people of the tri-state area entertainment, but most importantly for me, really important news that helps them understand their lives and hopefully make better decisions about all aspects of living here in the tri-state area.
And I understand that my wonderful colleague at Kann Broadcast Talent Coaching, Antoine Lewis, had something, maybe a little something to do with elevating you to your current position. And that means, like so many of us, you got to start somewhere, right? And you got to put a resume in front of somebody and a reel. How did you get your start, and what did Antoine, just for our purposes, what did he have to do with it?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more that we're all linked to each other in some way, and it takes a lot of elbow grease, determination, but also somebody who is willing to see you and see your potential. And for me, that's Antoine Lewis. He recognized in me something in those very, very early days when I was an intern at WGN, and I he had an opportunity to launch a morning news show in Indianapolis. I sent my resume. I think it arrived before he did, and the rest is sort of history. Antoine and I worked together in three markets: Chicago, Indiana, Indianapolis, and Denver, and have stayed in touch ever since. I consider him an incredible mentor and somebody who lifted me up and gave me that first shot in this business. And it's so important.
Yeah, let's talk about mentors. And I'm sure you are one to many at this point. Coaching, mentors, having those people, and I can think of my three right away, right? You know their face, you know the key thing that they said to you at one point in time. I think even you said before we got started that he pointed something out that was a little embarrassing, but they're there for you and you have to go find them. They so rarely happen by accident, I find.
it's a relationship, and as much as you are the mentee at the early part of your career, you are also engaging in a relationship that is still give and take with the mentor. And I think that's so important to recognize that it's not a lean back experience where you're asking for somebody to dump their wisdom on you. It really does need to be a give and take. I have gotten a lot out of the people I've mentored myself, and they hold up a mirror to the people who've grown up in this business as well. And so it's a good opportunity, I think, from both perspectives to continue to learn and grow. And what's more gratifying than helping somebody make their way in this business and raise the next generation of journalists? It's so important.
And what I now know as an elder statesman is that you, the mentee, can provide that other generation perspective, can't they? You
Mhm.
might not know the language, or you might not know a phrase, or you might not know, how things are viewed in from their viewpoint, because we kind of get clouded in our own world and our own age group, our own perspectives. Isn't that so great? That's why a newsroom needs to be, diverse in so many ways.
Absolutely. And you couldn't be more right about the importance of listening to everyone in the room and to making sure that room does really reflect the communities that we serve from every angle. And one of the things that I think is important, and it doesn't always happen, is what I said about making sure the voices are heard, and not everyone is the loudest voice at the table. So finding ways to understand what the quiet people are thinking is really, really important.
A lot of people that view this are at a certain point in their career. It doesn't matter where. But I want to talk to you about how you elevated. How did you get from one market to the next? How did you know when it was time to go? How did you know where to kind of point your ship, and what helped you, you know, get through to the number one market in the world?
Gosh, it's such a combination. And I would say a small measure of lunacy to leave positions that were really pretty good and comfortable. I was blessed to work at ABC 7 in Chicago, a number one dominant station, and had an incredible team there. Chicago was home for me, and I came to New York. I was incredibly fortunate to get a job opportunity to lead the newsroom I lead now. But boy, jumping off that cliff, packing up the family, and heading east is not easy. So I think some intestinal fortitude, but also just a desire to lead a team was what drove me to be a leader that uh, blended culture with journalism, and also infused with a spirit of innovation and creativity. Like I felt driven by the knowledge that I could bring that someplace. And I say that without hopefully sounding in any way arrogant, because those ingredients are only things you can suggest to a room, and it's up to the room to adopt and to bring them to life. It's certainly not something that I have done in any measure by myself, but it's so important as we in this industry fight to stay relevant and to continue to adapt, that the newsrooms have to have all those things, a spirit of collaboration, of innovation, and also recognizing the important foundation of what journalism absolutely needs to be to serve our audiences with every aspect of kind of the fair and balanced reporting that we know has to be a non-negotiable.
Fully get that. So well said. I appreciate that. What are some of the things that you use to develop your staff? So, not everybody is a round peg into a round hole. The roles in a newsroom are crazy, right? I mean, to find a someone that wants to help Lois Lane is an unusual character. tell me how you develop your staff and what you look for in people to plug them into certain roles.
In New York, as you probably imagine, we have a very experienced team. So that's number one. In this market, we have just so many seasoned veterans who come to work every day ready to absolutely crush it. But as I think we can all appreciate having been, we can both appreciate having been in this business, nobody is done learning, nobody is done growing. And I think growing the team has been, um, trying new things, experimentation, fast, failing fast. When something doesn't work, we don't push forward on it, but we move on to the next opportunity to try something. And then follow up, conversation. We talk a lot, we meet a lot. And that's even outside of the Zoom space, which I know has made meetings so much easier, but uh, clearly articulating what the vision is, striving for it, and then circling back if something doesn't happen the way we hope it does, we make a plan for the next time. I also would just say planning has been something that is it's so critical, and it sounds so, I guess maybe it's not the sexiest thing to talk about in a news environment. We think about breaking news, just going to where the disaster happens or where the big political victory is taking place. But planning has to be really, it's the bedrock of what we do. And when I first started in the newsroom, we elevated one of our incredible journalists to a managerial role. She's the executive producer of planning. And as I describe her job, it's to be the high beam headlights on the car, looking far down the road to what do we know we need? What do we need to be thinking about today that's happening in 3 months? And then working backward. And I think that set us up for some success as well.
Can you give me another example of maybe a young person that he came into the room and there's not you're going to get seasoned veterans in many cases that have worked in a lot of markets beforehand, but how did you maybe shift a career or two because of what you saw in them?
Well, one person comes to mind, and I'm sure there are so many others, but I had a morning show producer who worked tirelessly through COVID and really a tough set of circumstances. As you know, New York City was hit incredibly hard. The resources for the show had been kind of stripped away because of cost cuts, and also just generally not as many people were watching morning news, I think was part of the thinking at the time. Um, but when I got to know him and really talk about what his interests are, and where his strengths lie, it became very clear that he's much more of a technical person than fine show producer, but much more of a technical person, someone who wants to understand how everything works. And after many months and lots of discussions, he became another one of my news managers who is um, he's our media manager, but he does so much more. Everything that we require to run the newsroom is basically touched by him and managed by him. And we often remark, like, how do we ever even survive without having him in this role, Jeff in this role? It's so gratifying to see people find their kind of their passion. And if you love this business and love being in a newsroom, holding on to folks who are talented is so important.
What do you say to someone who's still searching for their right path? And they watch the news, they are, they kind of like writing and maybe have a sense for what a good story is. Should that person and how should that person find their way into broadcasting, into news? What do you say to that young person that really maybe they're in one career now and they want to get out of it so badly, or they're just getting going?
Well, it's a good opportunity to start because everyone creates content now, right? So it's not probably as difficult to crack into the content creation space as it used to be. I think figuring out what is your belief system and who do you want to be in that space is so critical though, because there are so many voices um, in our industry right now. And once you can define that for yourself, then I think the next steps become much more clear. If you want to if you believe strongly, like I do, in the power of local journalism, and you want people who live in your community to understand what's going on so that they can make good choices, then you should absolutely be working for a local organization, a local newsroom, and figuring out then, okay, I know where I want to be. I know, then you've kind of whittled down your field and you can start pursuing a more specific goal for yourself. I do think it's important to know what your belief system is so you're not flailing and just trying to get a job in any newsroom that'll take you. It's I think being specific about your search is really important, and you're going to find your right fit a lot faster.
Let me shift gears to an incredible day. And I don't know that you're going to be able to tag this right away. A tough question, perhaps. But bring me into your best day in broadcasting. Well, how did that day begin and how did it end?
Oh my God, the best day. That
Yeah,
is a really like that's a tough
I
one because
that
sometimes the
is.
best day can be like the hardest in terms of things that are going on. And breaking news isn't always the happiest. You know what? I'm going to tell you a story. I don't know if it's the best day, but it was a great day. Um, when I was working as news director, and we decided in a kind of last minute, 11th hour decision to do a documentary on the 10th anniversary of Superstorm Sandy. And documentaries don't come together in a month, but ours did. Maybe we had over a month. We were able to bring on a freelancer who I had worked with. I was blessed to know from a previous market. And he came in and worked with a bunch of people in my newsroom who were game for like Mission Impossible. We invested in some really beautiful cameras, some Sony F-series cameras to shoot the documentary. And the team, some of them already knew how to use those cameras, others learned on the fly. And we tackled the mission with such hunger and enthusiasm that I'll be proud of that till the day I die. The way it also, though, not just the content itself, because we're in the business of making premium content. It was the bonding it created for the team,
Hmm.
and frankly, the skill set that was developed by a good number of my photographers that exists in our newsroom today and has elevated our game ever since we did that documentary. So I guess I'm cheating on the answer. I didn't give you a one moment, but it was a very important moment for the newsroom in terms of recognizing a big challenge and taking it on, and also I think getting a understanding that we can invest in ourselves and we can take on big things and have fun along the way. But one of the moments that also sticks out is a interview that we actually lost. We had done an interview with one of our key voices of the documentary. He lived on Staten Island and agreed to talk to us. We met him out in the like field that had was where his home once stood,
Hmm.
and he talked in detail and gave an emotional interview about everything he'd lost and how he survived the storm. And my team got back to the station, and these are new cameras, and it's the audio that'll always get you, many of my seasoned vets will say, and that's what happened. They got back, and there was no audio on the interview.
Hmm.
And they came into my office, and I feel bad because they're the hardest working duo ever, and truly like green in the face with this feeling of what on earth are we going to do? And how are we going to tell Sarah we have no audio on the biggest interview of our whole documentary? And um, just thankfully, they'd already reached out and rearranged the interview to
Hmm.
be shot again. And I said something to them that I think is so true in my personal life and in my professional life. Um, I said, well, let's not make that mistake again. Let's make a new mistake. Let's not repeat that one. And if we don't repeat that mistake, no big deal. And we moved on. And
Two
that's a good motto, I think. You know, mistakes happen. It's when you repeat the same mistake that I think we have a problem.
two things off that. Full respect that your best day was 5 weeks. That's a news director. That's a news director speaking. And the other thing is, throughout my career, I have had such bad respect for technicians overall, right? Those that are behind the scenes and are able to keep the engine running and get it going. And in live television, for me, the audio engineers, the audio operators, the audio, the A1s, if you will, at the board. To me, that job is beyond my mind because, to your point, it's 0 or 1. It works or it doesn't work. How rarely do you go, hey, great audio there? No, you're going, that audio, we missed that. Where is that? That sounds crackly. Oh my gosh. It's usually they're the brunt of where is it? That can be better versus, boy, that's great audio.
Yeah.
So,
You're absolutely right. It does not get the praise it should get.
absolutely not.
And when
Yeah,
it's
mad
missing,
respect.
everyone just loses their mind, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Um, all right. The hurdles that you have faced, the challenges that if it can you a little bit, if you don't mind stepping back in one of your earlier days, that it's like, gosh, I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but you did. If you don't mind kind of discussing one of those, and then also a little bit of a modern challenge. We all know, the onslaught of AI. We all know social media being the force that it is. So what was an early challenge and a hurdle that you overcame and how did you do it? And then what's something from today?
I'll ask a question because I want to give you the best answer. A challenge related to news coverage or from a professional
I
development
think
perspective?
professional standpoint, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Um, it can be hard to get, I mean, I shouldn't even say it that way. It's really hard to crack into news management and to get to the role that I'm in now, and to make sure the right people, you get to meet the right people and you're taken, I would never say taken seriously because that suggests I wasn't. But to take your swing and to get a real shot at this opportunity is really tough. And I I tried for years to become a news director before it happened. This was not something that happened overnight. I had to chip away at it, and every time I had a recruiter who would call me and ask if I wanted to be news director in this place or that, and every time we had our conversation, it was like an annual appointment. I said no. I want to run. I want to run WCBS, and I will say very specifically this newsroom is the most special newsroom in the country. The people who work here are the just the best in the business, but also some of the most caring people I've ever had the pleasure to meet. And so it was my life's goal to run this newsroom with everybody's support. So
Wow.
getting that shot is requires such persistence and clarity of vision and um, I don't know, gobs of luck, because it does just also the timing of everything has to be perfect. So I can't say, I wish I had a more tangible piece of advice to people who are similarly interested in this type of leadership, but I would say believe in yourself, understand what you bring to the table, be able to articulate that, and never ever give up.
Hmm. Awesome. What about today's world, the challenges that are in your actual newsroom right now? What are you doing about maybe those top one or two challenges, if you don't mind sharing?
Um, no, not at all. And I think it's not. dissimilar to the challenge of getting this type of a role is then leading through incredible change, whether that's change in the company or change in the industry or both, um, and continually refocusing on what matters, what is the mission. And I was talking to my news managers about that last week. Um, if you don't have a belief system driving you, you will get lost. And it's so important to when your feet hit the floor in the morning, what is your mission? And the clarity of that is what drives me, but also I think is so important to keep sight of. Especially in local news. I think that is, to me, a blessing as the overall media landscape continues to shift and change. Our mission doesn't. It really doesn't, right? We serve a local audience, and our purpose is to inform people and to uncover wrongdoings and try to make them right through our journalistic skills. And I take incredible comfort in that, but it would be disingenuous of me to say that the change in our industry isn't the biggest challenge, because it certainly is. It's also one of our biggest opportunities to innovate, to reach more people. We, on election night, of course, had incredible coverage. We had a big plan and we executed it very well, I like to think. Um, but our coverage got 3 million views on the stream.
Hmm.
The opportunity to reach people outside of our market, the sixth borough of Miami, we have viewers in places we didn't have before, and that's the opportunity, but it also comes with the challenge of modernizing how we tell stories. And we have so many people in the newsroom now with different workflows than we used to. That's great, but it's also requires a lot of conversation, and making sure everyone feels like they're along for the ride, that no one's getting left behind in this incredible time of change.
Last thing, I want to know what you're jealous of. You're at the peak. Let's just be honest. You wanted this role, you have this role, and you're killing the game, as the kids say. Um, I wake up every Sunday morning and cannot wait to watch CBS News Sunday Morning with Jane Pauley, and I go back to Osgood and all the boys. That show is so satisfying and gratifying for me. Um, what is it on your calendar, on your watch calendar, that you just can't miss and adore?
Well, 60 Minutes. I mean, it doesn't get better. The journalism, the storytelling, the resources. A local news director will always be envious of that, right?
Yeah.
Sunday morning is also appointment viewing in our household as well. And just the beautiful uh, wordsmithing that happens in those both of those shows is it's the finest. It's art. And so if I guess I would say I'm envious of the opportunity to really travel and tell those incredible stories the way that they're told. And I'm just so proud to be in any way connected to those journalists and the craft, but that we all do. But we're in a little bit of a quick turn business here in at WCBS.
Nice. Last little thing, we at Kann Talent, Broadcast Talent Coaching, bring along people that are emerging broadcasters. You've touched on it. I just want to, how do you coach? Give me a couple of few tips on how you bring people along or keep them energized at what they do.
Well, I think it depends on depends on the role. I think I came up as a producer, so I'm sure there is a little extra emphasis I put on um, production, and I see my producers probably get rid of my sunshine glare here. I think maybe no, okay, um, I'll try to pivot. Um, but it can be such a hard job to do, and it can be really quite a grind, right? You're telling stories, you're putting together these newscasts, you're working against deadlines, sometimes often the news is incredibly heavy. So stretch assignments are important, I think, to give those producers an opportunity to flex different muscles and to work on things like we do an annual Tony's special. We do holiday programming. We did a really cool night of coverage in our augmented reality space that the CBS Stations Group has been investing in really heavily. So I had a producer who got to spend several days just planning what is it going to look like to be standing in this green room and have our anchors move around and talk about election results. So it does bring some of the playfulness back in the day to day, and I think that's really important. For reporters, we've been able to create a beat system that I think allows them to really invest in themselves and also, of course, our journalism by diving deep into a topic. And that has opened up a whole world of possibilities for them that also takes them off that grind of sometimes breaking news, the hard stuff that we have to cover. But also, we want to make sure that we're a place where people can come and get informed about really important issues, whether that's something related to transportation, education, of course, politics. We want to make sure that you get a holistic view of the tri-state area when you're watching one of our newscasts, because life is not a series of tragedies with lights and sirens. It's many, many things, and we try to make space to celebrate the good along with the bad, with acknowledging the bad. And I think that is something the whole newsroom benefits from. But then going back to the question of how do you elevate your team, it's a lot of conversation and follow up and providing feedback on the back end of whether it's a story or a newscast, talking about what we want to do better, working with our research partner to see what the data tells us about how we're doing things and maybe how tweaks we might want to make. It's a team effort, though. There is just I am part of that effort, but to really have good conversations that are thoughtful and strategic, it requires the whole village.
What a delight to visit with you, Sarah. Sarah Burke, I mean, superstar who started out wanting to be something, and darn it, she's doing it at a high level today. And really, I'm not kidding. I'm not placating. I am thanking you for keeping local news valid, right? You're at the centrifuge of that at a time when people are saying it's not being vital to us. So great job out of you. And thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, David. It was a pleasure to talk to you. I appreciate it.
Are you a producer, an anchor, maybe a news director of the future? Are you in sports, weather, a reporter? At Kann Broadcast Talent Coaching, we provide what you've been waiting for to elevate your career. Our agency of Emmy Award-winning coaches is ready to help you stand out in the crowded landscape. We work with former athletes, students with a dream, and veterans changing directions. Let's start now with a brief chat, a look at your reel, and understand your goals, and let Kann Broadcast Talent Coaching do the rest. Visit CannBroadcastCoaching.com and let's elevate today.